Hey, welcome back to the Tokusatsu desk. So, Shocker, the secret society bent on world domination, built their army out of Kaizoningen, or modified humans. They'd take animal and plant abilities and graft them onto people, and the results became the Shocker Kaijin, the monsters that gave the original Kamen Rider its color and its chaos. And today, I'm bringing you something that's well known among Japanese fans, but basically never makes it overseas. The complete, fully documented rundown of every single Shocker Kaijin. I don't think there's a Kamen Rider breakdown out there in any language that goes this deep into the behind-the-scenes trivia. So let's not waste any time. Kamen Rider aired from 1971 to 1973, and we're covering every monster from that run. Let's get into it. Episode 1, The Bizarre Kumo Otoko. Kumo Otoko? Kumo means spider. This guy's Shocker's very first monster, the honor of Episode 1. He shoots this super strong web from his mouth and finishes people off with poison needles. He's the one who kidnaps Hongo Takashi and turns him into a modified human, but Hongo escapes right before the brainwashing's complete. Kumo Otoko ends up being the very first victim of the Rider Kick. Quick side note on Shocker's grunt soldiers, the guys who follow the monsters around, they actually changed quite a bit over the years. Early on, they're the beret combatants. Episodes 1 through 4, they're wearing face paint, but that paint kept sweating off under the lights, so after that they switched to eye masks. Around the same era, there were also female combatants. The ones in red suits are supposedly officer rank, and each one wears a different patch depending on which monster they're serving under. From episode 14 onward, they shift to full face masks, black combatants and red combatants. And then from episode 53 on, they change again into the new combatants, who've got bone patterns painted on their bodies. Episode 2, Terror. Komori Otoko. Komori Otoko? Komori means bat. This one's got virus-loaded fangs that turn people into blood-sucking slaves, and he does his hunting at night. He tries to enslave an entire apartment building, but Rider eventually finishes him off with the signature Rider throw, ripping his wings off and slamming him into the ground. This episode plays out almost entirely at night and indoors, so the whole thing has this dark, murky look, genuinely hard to tell what's on screen half the time. Turns out that's because they were filming at an apartment building just a few minutes walk from Toei's Ikuta studio, and they couldn't exactly light the place up like a film set. They were stuck working with handheld lights. And funny enough, that hard-to-see problem is actually what led to the idea of putting lines on Rider's suit once Ichimonji Hayato took over. Also, Spider-Man, then Batman right out of the gate might just be a little joke from original creator Ishimori Shotaro. Episode 3, Kaijin Sasori Otoko. Sasori Otoko? Sasori means scorpion. This is Hongo's best friend, Hayase Goro, who actually volunteered to be modified. Makes him a tragic figure. His weapon's an electromagnetic pincer on his left arm. He's got real hostility toward Hongo, but instead of getting torn between friendship and duty, he just fights coldly to the end and dissolves into foam. One trivia note, Sasori Man never actually wears the shocker belt that most of the modified humans have. There's a widely circulated magazine still photo where he's wearing one, which is where a lot of the confusion comes from.
Episode 4, The Man-Eater Saracenian. Saracenian. This one's based on the pitcher plant Sarracenia. He grabs prey with vine-like tentacles and absorbs and digests them with his whole body. He sets up shop in a tropical botanical garden and kidnaps people to use as shocker labor. He's also one of the rare Shocker Kaijin who doesn't actually speak. Episode 5, Kaijin Kamakiri Otoko. Kamakiri Otoko. Kamakiri means mantis. Sharp sickle on the left hand, plus he can spit poison needles from his mouth that dissolve people. He kidnaps an engineer named Amemiya, who's needed for an artificial earthquake plan. Rider tracks him down, and they go through this intense close-quarters fight involving his sickle, but the Rider Kick takes him down in the end. There's a giant mantis illustration painted at his hideout, and that's actually a hint that Shocker isn't purely a science-driven organization. There's an occult side to them, too. In reality, it was more of a budget workaround. They couldn't afford to fill the set with machinery and blinking lights, so they painted a big picture instead. And from then on, every set got repainted to match whichever monster was featured that week. And get this, the guy actually doing the painting was from Expro, the company responsible for all the monster and set design work. Episodes 6 to 7, Death God Kamarion. Death God Kamarion, Duel, the Expo Ruins. Chameleon Otoko. This monster can blend completely into any background thanks to his camouflage ability. He's after a map to hidden Nazi treasure. The two-part story plays out at Expo Land, the leftover site from the Osaka World's Fair, and it's a relentless, obsessive chase across both episodes. Officially, he's often just referred to as Shinigami Chameleon, Death God Chameleon. Episode 8, Bizarre, Hachi Onna. Hachi Onna.
Hachi means bee. She emits a high-frequency signal that controls anyone wearing special sensor-equipped glasses. Shocker's very first female monster. She's a skilled fencer with a rapier. She's running a mind control kidnapping operation using hypnotic waves, but Hongo Takashi infiltrates her hideout and exposes the whole plan, and she's defeated. The actress who played Bee-Woman Unmasked was Iwamoto Ryoko from the Toei Actor Center. And this episode's script was written by Takizawa Mari, the only female screenwriter on the entire series. Episodes 9 to 10, Terror, Cobra Otoko, The Return of Cobra Otoko, Cobra Otoko, and Remodeled Cobra Otoko. His right arm stretches up to 5 meters like a snake, and he uses it to strangle his victims. After Rider defeats him in episode 9, Shocker's advanced science brings him back as remodeled Cobra Man. His skin turns gray, he gains 2 wings on the back of his head, and he can now breathe fire hot enough to melt steel. He nearly overwhelms Rider during a heist targeting a gold bullion vault. Out of every Shocker monster, Cobra Man might be the furthest from Ishimori Shotaro's original concept sketch. Ishimori's base concept leaned toward turning animals into full-on creatures, but designer Takahashi Akira at Expro took a different approach. He'd pull out just the specific details of the animal for the actual sculpting. That's a big part of why Kamen Rider's monsters felt so different from the typical kaiju of the era. And honestly, most of the Shocker Kaijin came out of Takahashi Akira's hands. His contribution here is huge. Episode 11, Vampire Monster Geba Condor. Vampire Monster Geba Condor. A monster Shocker built by throwing everything they had at it. He attacks a wedding hall to drink the blood of young women, using energy to power himself up. His flight speed is ferocious, and he manages to push Rider into a temporary defeat. A genuinely strong opponent.
Episode 12, Killer Yamagarasu. Yamagarasu. There's a killing weapon called the Danger Light that can reduce living things to bones. Yamagarasu kidnaps and threatens the weapon's developer, Dr. Shibata, to try to weaponize it further. With gecko-like abilities, he can climb walls freely, giving him a real 3-dimensional edge in his fight against Rider. Episode 13, Tokagalon and the Monster Army. Tokagalon, an arrogant ace striker who gets grafted with the abilities of a highly venomous lizard. He's got powerful legs that can kick a barrier destruction ball, and his combat power is strong enough to completely break through the Rider kick. He revives a whole squad of past monsters and leads them in an all-out assault. Episodes 14 to 15, The Invasion of Demon God Sabotegron. Sabotegron. Dispatched under direct orders from the great leader himself after Shocker's Mexico branch hit 90% completion on its occupation operation. He's a formidable enemy who wields a cactus-shaped bomb called Mexico's Flower. He's also notable as the first Shocker monster Ichimonji Hayato ever faced. Fun fact, the footage used for the Mexican dam destruction scene in this episode was actually recycled from special effects footage shot for another Toei show, Captain Ultra. Episodes 16 to 17, The Devil Wrestler Pyrosaurus. Deathmatch in the ring. Defeat Pyrosaurus. Pyrosaurus, a modified human fused with Pyrosaurus, a reptile living deep in South America. He breathes out a powerful poison gas called death fog. Here's the twist. The original Pyrosaurus actually dies from his own poison gas right at the start of the episode. So Shocker kidnaps a tough, powerful pro wrestler and turns him into a tough warrior version instead. He terrorizes the wrestling ring before finally clashing with Ichimonji Rider. Episode 18, Fossil Man Hito Danger. Hito Danger, a starfish-based monster with fossil-like rock-hard skin that bounces back any physical attack. His job is to guard a Shocker missile base under construction deep in the Kirigahara Mountains, and he turns any human who wanders in into a skeleton. His defense gives Rider 2 a hard time, but water turns out to be his weak point. Episode 19, Kaijin Cannibobler appears in Hokkaido. Cannibobler, a crab monster who dissolves people using foam. He attacks a weather observatory to keep a massive earthquake plan targeting all of Hokkaido a secret. He manages to catch Ichimonji's Rider kick with his pincer, tougher than most, but ultimately goes down to a Rider punch and explodes. Episodes 20 to 21, The Fire-Breathing Caterpillar Kaijin Dokugonder, Showdown at Osaka Castle. Dokugonder, larva and adult forms. In episode 20, he appears as a fire-breathing caterpillar larva, and by episode 21, he's molted into a moth-winged adult, a rare case of a monster physically evolving mid-story. Along with the transformation comes advanced flight capability. He plans a large-scale poison gas operation centered on Osaka Castle. Episode 22, Fish Monster Amazonia. Amazonia, a piranha-based modified human with skin tough enough to withstand deep-sea pressure. He's summoned from the Amazon branch to carry out Plan 507 Inches, a massive uranium mining operation. He's dominant in the water, dragging Rider in for an underwater fight where he has the advantage, but Rider turns the tables once they're back on land. Episode 23. The Flying Kaijin Musasabidoru. Musasabidoru, a flying squirrel monster who glides freely through the air. He steals a new liquid fuel and plots to blow up Sapporo. His aerial ambushes give Ichimonji real trouble, but he's eventually shot down by the rider kick. Side note, in the film Kamen Rider vs. Shocker, he's actually named Musasabidoru, and he's frequently misspelled elsewhere as Musasabitoru. Also, on this Hokkaido location shoot, there apparently wasn't enough budget set aside to cover return travel for the Ono Kenyukai stunt team. So the crew members left stranded in Hokkaido actually put on the monster suits from the shoot and ran their own live rider shows around the region just to earn enough money to get themselves back to Tokyo. Episodes 24 to 25. The deadly poison Kaijin Kinokomorogu strikes. Defeat Kinokomorogu wo Tawase. Kinokomorogu. Based on Life Prisoner number 13, this is a poisonous mushroom modified human. Given his background as a murderer, he's got a genuinely brutal personality. He scatters mind-controlling mushroom spores everywhere. At one point, he manages to kidnap and imprison Ichimonji Hayato, pushing him right to the edge. Episode 26. Terror of the Antlion Pit. Jigoku Thunder. An antlion-based monster who can rain down sand and artificially create pits to drag his prey into. When Colonel Zoll arrives in Japan, this one falls under his direct command. He's especially dangerous fighting on sand, using the unstable footing to run circles around Ichimonji Rider. Episode 27. Mukatarasu's Monster Classroom. Mukatarasu, a centipede monster who runs a monster classroom, brainwashing kids into becoming Shocker's junior recruits. He commands two revived monsters, Geba Condor and Saracenian. The segmented legs on his body are actually a weapon called the boomerang legs. He can detach them and throw them like shuriken, and he can also emit hypnotic sound waves and brain-destroying sound waves. Episode 28. Underground Kaijin Mogurungu. Mogurungu, a mole monster with sharp drill-like claws that can tunnel through concrete instantly. He's constantly kidnapping people to carry out the Tokyo Bay Sea of Fire plan, which targets an industrial complex for destruction. He's blind, but he's got an organ called the Electro Eye that can pick up a full 360-degree view from underground. His underground ambush tactics give Rider 2 trouble, but he's eventually dragged to the surface and defeated. Note, the people kidnapped and modified for labor are called mole men, and you can tell them apart from Mogurungu himself because they wear a necklace. Episode 29. Electric Kaijin Kuragidaru. Kuragidaru, electric jellyfish modified human. He extends tentacles from his palms to wrap up enemies and hits them with electric shocks ranging from 5,000 to 50,000 volts. He lurks around a lighthouse called Washigasaki, zapping any villagers who get close so he can collect bodies to turn into electric humans. He even manages to paralyze Ichimonji's body with an electric shock.
Episode 30. The Revived Fossil. Vampire Trilobite. Zamboronzo paleontologist Dr. Shimura revives a trilobite from a fossil, and Shocker steals it and turns it into a monster. It can switch between its trilobite form and its monster form, but it needs to drink human blood to return to monster form. Ichimonji's rider kick sends it back to being a fossil for good. Episode 31. Deathmatch. Demon Anteater Arigabari. Arigabari, a modified human based on an anteater. He carries a bacterial weapon called the Amazon Curse, and anyone infected becomes obsessed with eating nothing but ants. He deflects Ichimonji's kick and pushes him to the brink of defeat, but ultimately falls to a new finishing move, the Rider Manji kick, which Ichimonji perfects through brutal training with Taki Kazuya. Episode 32. The Man-Eating Flower Dokudarian. Dokudarian, a poisonous flower monster. He disguises himself as the seductive owner of a flower shop and sells artificial flowers that emit hypnotic sound waves. He kidnaps women from the town one after another to use as laborers, producing poison gas. He can swallow people whole and dissolve them with a giant fanged petal. In the end, he's burned alive during the fight. Episode 33. Steel Kaijin Armadillong. Armadillong, an armadillo monster with an incredibly tough shell that deflects bullets outright. His signature move, the bullet screwball, lets him curl into a sphere and charge with devastating force. He gives Ichimonji a brutal fight since none of his attacks land, but he's finally defeated with a strike to his one weak point, his stomach. Episode 34. Japan in Danger, the Invasion of Gamagirar. Gamagirar,
a toad monster who swings a chained spiked ball and breathes hallucinogenic poison gas from his mouth. He's plotting to blow up the Fossa Magna, the fault line marking the east-west divide of Japan, with a nuclear bomb, threatening to split the country in two. He can fire nerve gas from his horns that drives anyone who inhales it insane, and he also fights with a kusarigama, a chain sickle. Episode 35, Killer Queen Ant Arikamidesu. Arikamidesu commands killer ants in a plot to wipe out every human in Japan. She sprays a powerful acid from her mouth that dissolves anyone or anything in her way. After Ichimonji steals one of her eggs, she and her ants attack the Tachibana Racing Club to reclaim it. Her eggs give off a strange smell and glow as hatching approaches.
Episode 36, The Revived Mummy Kaijin Egyptus. Egyptus, a 4,000-year-old Egyptian mummy brought back to life as a monster. He's skilled in ancient sorcery and can also breathe an extremely high-temperature flame from his mouth. He goes after a diamond, said to be worth 1 billion yen, allegedly transported from Egypt to Japan, and gets into an intense chase with Kamen Rider over it. Fun fact, episode 36 was originally supposed to feature a seahorse-based monster, but the design got changed because it didn't fit the story's tone. That's actually why his subordinate combatants still wear seahorse emblems. Episode 37, Poison Gas Kaijin Tori Kabuto's Operation G. Tori Kabuto extracts the deadly poison from the aconite plant to create a killer gas that dissolves anyone it touches instantly. He commands G-Plan, a scheme to place poisonous plants in theaters and concert halls to wipe out everyone inside. To capture a boy who witnessed the plan, he calls in a group of revived monsters: Armadillon, Canababbler, Mugurungu, and Mukadarasu. In the end, he's punched off a rooftop by a rider punch and falls to his death. Episode 38, Lightning Kaijin A-King's World Blackout Operation. A-King, an electric ray monster who unleashes powerful lightning bolts. He can store and discharge up to 1 million volts of electricity, and he can also fly. As a prototype, he doesn't wear the standard shocker belt. He attacks power plants as part of the World Darkness Operation, aiming to seize control of cities during the resulting blackouts. His massive electric power is even strong enough to short out Ichimonji's electronic brain. Episode 39, Kaijin Okami Otoko's Murder Party. Okami Otoko, Colonel Zol. Okami means wolf. This is the true form of Colonel Zol, the first executive of Shocker's Japan branch, who transforms himself using the wolf virus as part of Operation Wolf, turning humans into wolfmen to attack the city. His performance as a modified human is high-end. He's got rocket blasts he can fire from his fingertips, plus physical ability that rivals Kamen Rider himself. There's also a test subject version of Wolfman. To tell them apart, that version is sometimes referred to as Golden Wolfman. In the end, he dies in an explosive final showdown against Ichimonji. Alright, that's it for this one. We've still got a long way to go before we complete the full Shocker Kaijin roster. We'll keep going all the way through to the finale. See you next time on the Tokusatsu desk. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button. It really helps.